My name's Greg Knapp. This is the Greg Knapp Experience, your 20-minute thrill ride for your commute or your workout. NBC defies science and common sense in one segment. Call it fake news, though, and you're canceled. We'll explain. California proposes free health care for all and illegal aliens. And yes, the CDC director did say over 75% of COVID deaths were in those with at least 4 comorbidities. However, that leaves one important detail out. We will get that one for you as well. All of it and a lot more coming up in this edition of the Greg Knapp Experience. Let's go. All right, so starting off with NBC because, sometimes you just got to say fake news. But no, you can't because then you're going to be in big trouble. Madeline Kern's reporting that NBC did a segment where they suggested there may be very little evidence of a gender performance gap in swimming. What? Are they crazy? Yes, they are crazy. They're trying to be so politically correct. If you watch this segment, it's just sickening. Listen, Greg, you're transphobic if you disagree with that segment. Transphobic means you're afraid of transgender people. And some people turn it into you hate transgender people. How is that the equivalent of lying about it? Because that's what NBC is doing. The presenter, Haley Jackson, said 10 states have recently passed some kind of bill banning trans athletes from participating in youth sports. So they're wrong on the face of it. No state has banned trans athletes from participating in youth sports. They're simply saying you cannot compete in a gender you feel like. You can compete in the gender you were born as. That's all. So you can still compete. You just can't be a boy saying you feel like a girl and compete on girls' teams. That's all they're talking about, okay? Jackson introduces Joe Yurkaba, a reporter for the LGBT branch of NBC News called NBC Out. And she begins as saying that there are those who believe trans women in women's sports is unfair to cisgender women, since they don't receive the advantages of higher testosterone during puberty. However, such voices are in contention with those who say, quote, there is very little scientific evidence that those advantages carry over for trans women after transition, end quote. What? It's just a huge story over the last couple months of the swimmer at Penn, swam for the men's team for 3 years, now all of a sudden swimming for the women's team and crushing all the women and breaking all their records. The only person he's lost to this year, another trans swimmer. But no, there's no way that those advantages of being a man carry over when you transition. Right. Madeline Kearns points out there's a website called boysversuswomen.com, and they're comparing track and field times between boys, high school boys, and Olympic women. And they also compared swim times from high school boys at the national competitions to Olympic women. Guess what they found out? 50-meter freestyle swimming. None of the women's final performances in the Olympics met the qualifying time for the high school boys national championship finals. Whoa. All 8 boys in the 50-meter freestyle swimming national finals, all 8 boys, beat the times of the women's Olympic gold medalist. No, nothing carries over. Well, it's not just 50 meters. All right, let's go to the 200-meter freestyle swimming. The top woman, set an Olympic record, and she still wouldn't have beaten a single high school boy in the national finals of the 200-meter freestyle swimming. And then it just goes down to all the swimming. There's like 2 where a woman beat a couple of the boys. One, a woman set a world record, and still an 18-year-old and 16-year-old boy beat her. If you compare the times. This is from 2016. The times they're comparing. But no. There's very little scientific evidence that those advantages carry over for trans women after transition. Wait, you're telling me some hormones and testosterone blockers, and all of a sudden they're going to be equal competing? There's just no way. Lung capacity is different in men than women, bone density, body fat, on and on and on. And we're talking about fairness in athletics for women. No. Very, very little difference. I'm going to talk about, unfortunately, a new leaked play an executive order from President Biden that's harmful to women too in just a second. But first, I want you to be a part of this movement of the Greg Knapp experience. And the movement is to push back on things like we just talked about, on the left and their craziness, and also this idea that America is this hateful, systemically racist nation, and really rally around the fact that it's an exceptional nation based on the founding documents and the individual freedom for all and treating everyone the same under the law. If you believe in that, please tell 3 friends to tell 3 friends to listen to the show. You guys are my advertisers, and I really, really appreciate it to try to grow this movement. Like me on Greg Knapp Experience Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, Parler, Gab. The video of the show's on Rumble and YouTube. Would love to see you on the Greg Knapp Experience Facebook page. Thanks so much. So we've got an executive order that was leaked out that the Federalist got a piece of, and it shows a proposed executive order on law enforcement. It's a draft, so it's not done yet. We'll see what happens. But it's pretty much getting softer and softer on crime. And toward the very end of it, there's just a small paragraph. And it orders the U.S. Attorney General to, quote, within 30 days of the date of this order, begin the process of identifying any necessary changes to the Bureau of Prisons Transgender Offender Manual to enable the Bureau of Prisons to designate individuals to facilities in accordance with their gender identity. And it doesn't say that there has to be any kind of physical transition with surgery or hormones or anything. It's basically if you feel like you're a woman, even though you're biologically a man and going to the men's federal prison, you can simply say, I feel like a woman, and you get transferred to the women's federal prison. Oh, that'll be safe for the women. Oh, yeah. And by the way, there's nothing in here that says that a sex offender can't choose that. Oh, that's just great. Greg, they would never do that. Nobody would ever do that. Mm-hmm. Right. It's already happened. It's happened in Washington State. It's happened in California. In Washington State, Carolyn Downey over at National Review Online, and we talked about this, I think it was a couple months ago, published a piece detailing alleged rapes and sexual assaults within the Washington State prison system from the men being housed in the female prisons, biological men. Then there's Brittany Bernstein reporting in California, one of the women that got raped. Plaintiff Crystal Gonzalez says she was sexually assaulted by a biological male who was transferred to Central California Women's Facility under the law. According to the suit, when Gonzalez filed a complaint and requested to be housed away from men, the prison's response called her alleged attacker, you ready? A, quote, transgender woman with a penis, end quote. What is going on? A transgender woman with a penis, otherwise known as a man. No! You can't say that. That's horrible. You hate transgender people. Man, can we just say it one more time? I have nothing against transgender people. I can't imagine what it must be like to feel like you're trapped in the wrong body. It must be horrible, awful. But that doesn't mean that we do this kind of nonsense. You don't transfer men into women's prisons. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, he's proposing his new budget, $213 billion. And it includes proposals to fund a state gun buyback, invest billions in so-called climate change plans, but it also has universal health care. And he said this. Here's the big one. California is poised to be, if this proposal is supported, the first state in the country to achieve universal access to health coverage. So what does that mean? It means full-scope Medi-Cal, including long-term care, in-home supportive services, behavioral health to all low-income Californians, regardless of immigration status. Wait, what was that last part? Regardless of immigration status. Does that mean illegal aliens? Regardless of immigration status. People who just jumped over the border? Regardless of immigration status. Yes, that's what it means. Can't figure out why people are leaving California. Let's see. Taxes are up? Yep. Lockdowns back? Yep. Masking mandates? Sure. Increased crime? Oh, yeah. More homelessness on the street? Yep, absolutely. Shutting down your business because the homeless are camped out in front of it? Yeah. You can't figure out why people are moving out. I mean, it's just crazy. Why would people do that? And talk about the taxes. The Wall Street Journal is pointing out exactly how this universal health care thing would work. First of all, a board of bureaucrats would supposedly, control the cost, which means ration care. But the deliberations about the rationing would be concealed from the public. The legislation imposes a limitation on the public's right of access to the meetings of public bodies in order to protect private, confidential, proprietary information. So you're entitled to a free knee replacement, but you might not get it, and maybe it's because you're too old, but you would never know because the state won't let you know the reason that they've rejected you. And the bill would also effectively ban private insurance for benefits that are covered by the state, which is basically everything except, like cosmetic surgery. That's not going to go down very well, is it? How about tax increases? Well, how about you start with a 2.3% excise tax on businesses with more than $2 million in annual gross receipts, and that's on their revenues, not on their profits. Employers with 50 workers or more would also pay a 1.25% payroll tax, which of course they're going to take out of your salary just by, not increasing your salary or giving you a pay cut. And if you earn over 50 grand, you'd pay an additional 1% payroll tax. And on and on and on it goes. I mean, it gets to the point where the effective income tax on wage earners making more than $61,000 would be 11.55% in California, more than millionaires pay in every state but New York. And there's more taxes, but hey, listen, it's for a good cause. It's so that everyone can have health care regardless of immigration status. Now, I want to get to the story where the CDC director, Walensky, said this: over 75% of COVID deaths were in those with at least 4 comorbidities. And that is what she said on Good Morning America. And it went viral, and I saw it on a lot of people's different feeds, and I was like, holy crap, she's finally admitting it. That's amazing. And I put it up on my Twitter and my Gab and my Parler and my Facebook page. And then I started reading through it more and saw it a couple different places, and I'm like, oh, wait, hold on a second. And I watched the video, and there's a little thing that's in there that kind of twists this a little bit. So I deleted those tweets and Parlers and Gabs and all that because I didn't want to mislead someone. Here's the deal. When she was about to say that, the lady set it up this way. She said, I want to ask you about the encouraging headlines we're talking about this morning. This new study that shows just how well vaccines are working to prevent severe illness. So that was the context of the CDC director saying 75% of COVID deaths were in those with at least 4 comorbidities. So there's a study out that went back to December. And during December 2020 through October 2021, a total of 1.2 million people aged 18 years or older completed primary vaccination for this study. Okay? And what they found was, out of 1.2 million vaccinated people, only 36 died, which is pretty good, 0.003%. 77.8% of the ones who died had those 4 comorbidities. So this was people who were vaccinated, and 75% of those people who died had comorbidities, not 75% of the general population. So it is slightly different when you get all the context. So there's that part of it. However, that should also be very encouraging for those of you and me that say, well, if the vaccines are this great about stopping severe illness and death, then maybe we shouldn't be locking down. Maybe we shouldn't be forcing the vaccination and let people choose. Maybe we should not be forcing mask mandates on people everywhere that they're still doing that. So it comes and goes both ways, right? It cuts both ways here. And it also just shows how much we haven't been really focusing on the fact that it's not as deadly if you protect the highest at risk for it, which is, what was that called again? The Barrington Project. Remember that? Yeah. And remember when even Trump started talking about supporting that one, and the press went nuts, and even CDC Director Walensky went nuts. James Freeman reminding us of this over at the Wall Street Journal. Here's the thing that's just so frustrating, I'm sure for you as it is for me. People like you and me have just been asking questions. This is an experimental vaccine. How safe is it? Is it something that I should absolutely take? What if I'm healthy? What if I'm young? What if I've got some history and medical health problems? And you ask that question and you're this horrible, awful person. How dare you? You're trying to stop people from taking the vaccine. Hey, does ivermectin work? Hey, does hydrochloroquine work? Hey, are there other things we can do besides just waiting around till we're so sick we have to go to the hospital and get on a ventilator way back when this thing started? Well, you're just crazy conspiracy person. I'm just asking questions, trying to figure this out. We got doctors that are experts in this field that are saying, hey, here's some things you can do. And they've talked about ivermectin and hydrochloroquine, and they've talked about iodine and all these other different things. And just for the fact that they're talking about it and talking about some of the problems with the vaccine and some of the bad reactions that some people are having, how dare they're horrible, and deplatform them. Well, now that Biden's in charge and all of his promises on this have gone by the wayside, I will shut down this virus, that's gone. And you can't blame Trump anymore. And the people are now tired of it. And even Democrats are saying, I don't want to lock down anymore. Now, all of a sudden, we get the CDC director talking about comorbidities in death. We've got Dr. Fauci talking about, well, there's a difference between being hospitalized for COVID and being hospitalized with COVID, right? I mean, if you're hospitalized for COVID, you came there because that's the problem. If you come in for something else and we test you and you have COVID, we still count you as COVID. See, so it's a little bit, yeah, that's what we've been saying. So it gets a little bit frustrating. So James Freeman talks about the CDC director saying what I said, that the overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. Those are vaccinated people. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with. And yes, really encouraging news in the context of Omicron. She got ripped for that too. It's encouraging news when people die. That's not what she meant. But it is encouraging to know that if you're not at high risk, your risk of dying is extremely low, especially if you're vaccinated. And now with Omicron, it may be extremely low even if you're not vaccinated and you're healthy. Because, as we talked about the other day, with Omicron, there is no scientific evidence that shows that being vaccinated is the big helper for Omicron that it was for Delta. In fact, after 90 days, the story we had yesterday said there was even a negative benefit in some people. In other words, they were more likely to get it if they were vaccinated. You can't say that. It's science. I thought we were all about the science. Her CDC website notes that close to 95% of death certificates listing COVID as a cause also mention other causes. How about that? That's pretty amazing. So on Sunday, Dr. Walensky tweeted this out. We must protect people with comorbidities from severe COVID-19. I went into medicine, HIV specifically, and public health to protect our most at risk. CDC is taking steps to protect those at highest risk, including those with chronic health conditions, disabilities, and other adults. And that was what we talked about with the Great Barrington Declaration in 2020. The whole point of that from these doctors was that we needed a focused protection strategy on the most at risk, take great care to shield those at high risk, but allow the vast majority of us at low risk to keep working, keep going to school, keep doing all the things that sustain life. It was very sensible, and it sounds like Dr. Walensky is now all for it. But back in 2020, when Trump was talking about the Great Barrington Agreement, Dr. Walensky joined the politically correct establishment and dismissed it and the doctors and the researchers as being on the academic fringe. I guess she's joined the fringe. Yep, she's joined the fringe. She's all fringy like country and western. All right. John Brown is reporting that Democratic mayors and governors are now embracing a strategy of avoiding renewed lockdowns. Yeah, it's the third year, and people are getting tired of it. First reported by Politico, not all Democratic mayors, but some. Democratic Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, remember, she locked down in 2020. She's urged Chicago residents to cancel traditional Thanksgiving celebrations back then. But now that the Chicago Teachers Union says they don't want to teach again, she's all up in their business. Lightfoot's office filed an unfair labor practices complaint last week against the city's teachers union. Once again, flashback. 2 months into the pandemic, she announced police will issue citations and possibly arrest any resident who fails to follow stay-at-home orders aimed at limiting the spread of COVID-19. We will shut you down. We will cite you. And if we need to, we will arrest you. We will take you to jail. Yeah, and now she's going after the teachers union. Oh, that's good. Governor Newsom, California. There were strict lockdowns in the past, but now he wants the Super Bowl to take place in California anyway. Aren't we in the middle of a huge, huge wave? Well, but, there's a lot of money in the Super Bowl, and people want to go to the Super Bowl, and we don't want to lose the Super Bowl, and people are tired of being locked down. During an interview last month, Governor Jared Polis, Democrat, Colorado, said the emergency is over. He placed the onus for potential infection on the unvaccinated and says he prefers vaccinations to mask mandates. Public health officials don't get to tell people what to wear. That's just not their job. What's the big change? Well, Biden instead of Trump, and as Monmouth University's Polling Institute Director Patrick Murray said, A year ago, most Democratic voters were ahead of where governors were, saying, "You're not locking down enough." Many of those people are now saying, "It doesn't matter at this point," and what we're seeing is governors reacting to that and acknowledging the mood of their own base. Yep. Michael Lee reporting the White House said private health insurers will be required to pay for up to 8 COVID-19 tests per person per month starting January 15. Wait a second. One person, the president, can order these private healthcare businesses to provide free health test kits for COVID. Yep, that's right. He's the president. He can do whatever he wants. That's not America. You shouldn't be able to tell me as a private business owner that I have to start giving stuff away for free. You want to do that? You use your money. Well, government doesn't have any money. You're right. Use the taxpayer money. They're going to do that too. But that's just insane, man. Now, if some healthcare companies want to do that, they might get an advantage in people wanting to stay with them. Or some companies may not, but they want to keep their premiums low. No. They're going to force you to do that. Man, that's just not right, man. Why don't you care about people? Why do you want people to die? Those two things are not always the same. The one doesn't go with the other. Dave Urbanski reporting, there's a Toronto-based lawyer. After his second Pfizer shot, he ended up getting pericarditis. That's the inflammation of the lining around the heart. And it's one of the 2 potential significant side effects associated with the mRNA vaccines. But he wrote an op-ed saying that he's fine with it. I mean, he said, "I thought I was experiencing muscle pain. I let the pericarditis go too long without treatment. I experienced a dangerous squeezing of the heart called tamponade. But, quote, I accept my role as collateral damage to the vaccine rollout. Before the current Omicron wave, vaccines helped us get back to some degree of normality. They protect society and our public health system. Previous generations were asked to undertake far greater risks for the protection of society, including being drafted for war. The vaccines are our civic duty." So he went and got the booster. This dude had pericarditis. He went and got the booster. "Well, I took the Johnson & Johnson this time. It's a viral vector vaccine less associated with pericarditis." And he said he hopes that this will help some of the vaccine hesitant go ahead and get the shots. Wait, so you had a horrible side effect, and you hope telling your story is going to get more people to go get vaccine? This is when you're all in on the tribe. This guy is so far in on his tribe that he can't say, you know what, maybe there are some reasons not to take the vaccine. Maybe some people medically shouldn't get vaccinated. Maybe we should just let people choose. And if you're worried about getting it, you get vaccinated. You can wear a mask. You can isolate. You can socially distance. You can do a lot of stuff on your own without worrying about somebody else getting vaccinated. No. It's my duty. I'm just like the people that stormed the beach of Normandy. All right, dude. It makes you feel better. Phil Shiver reporting that in Quebec, they're trying so hard to get people vaccinated. The Quebec health minister, Christian Dubé, said starting January 18, if you want to buy alcohol or cannabis from the government-operated retailer, you must show proof of vaccination. Now they're making sense. You want to make sure everybody in Quebec is vaccinated. They can't buy alcohol and they can't buy weed until they show their papers. All right? And they're talking about doing it for other non-essential businesses as well. We will force you to do this right about the time that the Omicron situation is getting so out of control and the fact that the vaccine isn't really working against Omicron. The health minister's comments echoed a sentiment recently offered by French President Emmanuel Macron, who said his health strategy effectively amounts to pissing off the unvaccinated until they get the shots. That sounds like just a great political slogan, doesn't it? I'll piss you off until you get the shots. Vote for me. The unvaccinated, I really want to piss them off. And so we're going to continue doing so until the end. That's the strategy. And it's a horrible Macron. I'm working on it. That's the French newspaper, Le Parisien. And that is the Greg Knapp Experience. My name's Greg Knapp.